Hello, today I want to demonstrate how you can work from Lightroom and go over to Photoshop to create the compositing that you bring back to Lightroom Classic afterwards if you have finished. So let's get started and let's explore this workflow. So I'm here inside Lightroom Classic and I'm working in the develop model to create the starting settings, and I will just start right now. So in the beginning I want to bring down the highlights a little bit like so and lift up the shadows like so. If you do this really strong, you can also bring in a little bit of black, but right now I don't want to add black because I will lose details in the darker areas. So black can stay where it is, like so. And then for the sharpening, because this is a portraiture more or less, I will go in with a low frequency sharpening. And that means that I can bring down the details because I don't want to sharpen the details. On the masking, I hold down the Option key and slide the mask over. So I will just sharpen the areas of the body and the shape. So a high masking for this. And for the radius, I will go on with a big radius as well. So I will just affect the regions of the body shapes. And with the amount, don't be crazy like so. I think that's totally fine. So that's the settings for the sharpening. And then I will go in a little bit and tune the brightness. So I will go down a little bit so that the brightness corresponds to the brightness of the recording like so. So the screen you see is a little bit brighter than the recording or than my image. So I will go down with the exposure a little bit so it will match roughly what I will see. Okay, that's for all I will do right now inside Lightroom Classic. So because I go to Photoshop, I won't do anything more here inside Lightroom. And to go to Photoshop, you have the option to just go with a right click or secondary click, press Edit In, and here you can say Edit in Photoshop 2023. But what are the settings when you're going here? So just go to the Preferences, and here inside the External Editing tab, and there you can check what your settings are to go inside Photoshop. Because now we are switching from a raw workflow, I use here a DNG file, and go in to a file format of TIFF or PSD, and I'm using the PSD file format for this. Okay, for the color space, you have to choose from these 4 color spaces, and I use Adobe RGB because my ISO screen displays or is able to display this color space. And for the bit depth, I know that I most of the time be totally fine with 8 bits per component. You can switch this over to 16 bits if you're not sure. 16 is better than 8, but you don't need 16 bits all the time. But if you don't know what you're doing and when 6 bits or 8 bits is the right choice, just stay on 16 bit. I, as mentioned before, use 8 bit. And in the lower section of this dialog, you have the additional external editor. And here inside the external editors, you can create the secondary editing setting for Photoshop, and you just choose the application, that's Photoshop. I have the PSD format, Adobe RGB, and here I have the option to go with 16 bits per component. Okay, that's everything you need to know, and now you can go inside Photoshop, but I will brighten the shadows a little bit more. And for this you go with the right click and go to Edit In and just say Edit in Adobe Photoshop 2023, or just press Command and E. And after that, the raw image gets transferred over to Photoshop, and you see the name is here exactly the same as inside Lightroom. It's also in DNG, but it's not true actually. That's just the name, so you know that you came over from Lightroom with this file. If I now press on Command S to save, you see that the file extension and the name changes. So now I have a PSD file and I have the name minus edit, and so I know, okay, that's my raw file, the original file was transferred over to Photoshop and now it's a PSD file. Okay, and what do we want to do right now? This is the image I want to work on, and I want to bring this image over to this image I've downloaded from Unsplash, and there's a little bit work to do, and so I will start right now. Here inside Photoshop by creating a new layer, and that's my retouching layer, like so. And now I will zoom in to 100% and start retouching here inside this image. And for the retouching, I will take the spot healing brush. It's crucial that you have set up sample all layers, because I'm on an empty layer and I want to work on this empty layer and not on the original pixels. So sample all layers is activated, and now you can start working. I will zoom in a little bit here on this image and just go over these regions over here, like so, and just retouch away all the blemishes, like so, and maybe here a little bit, and these hairs over there, and some of these dust regions, like so, and here on the arm as well. Okay, here for this stuff over here, I will switch over to the healing brush tool, sample the layer from next to this region. I've also selected sample all layers and aligned here in the menu bar, and now I can retouch this stuff away. And some kind of a problem over here is that this tool is working on a 100% opacity level, so you will retouch away all the stuff by 100%, but you don't have to leave it like this, because now it's just away. And now I want to switch over to the eraser and change the size, change the opacity to roughly 20%, and now I can bring back all the levels from here. So all I have done on this layer, I can now fade back with the eraser. So I will bring back some of the stuff I just have retouched away, just a little bit. So this was before, this is after, before and after. And just with the eraser and a small, tiny opacity, you can bring back all over here. Okay, that's okay. Then here is another thing I want to change. So I sample this layer with the option click. Here on the ground, on this backdrop, I will erase away all this small stuff. So because the shadow, the original shadow, is really crucial for the compositing afterwards, so I will go for a clean backdrop and just retouch all this stuff away. Okay, so let's see what I've done. I think that's okay. Now I want to brighten the eyes a little bit, and for this I will go inside the curves, create a new curve, and bring up the highlights like crazy. Then invert the mask with Command I, zoom into the eyes and to the iris, take a brush, and I will take a brush with a 50% hardness, so roughly 50%, a little bit smaller. And now with white I can brighten the eyes and especially the iris and the pupil. Okay, like so. And that's too much because this was just for the working on this image. So I will erase this point, bring up the highlights and bring down the darker areas, like so. And these curves are just for the iris and pupil, and I think that's okay. So that's okay right now for the retouching, and now I want to bring all the retouching inside one smart object, and for this I create a new layer just for naming the smart object, retouching. Then I will create a smart object by selecting all this layer. So this is a click, shift click, and after this you can just go with a right click and convert to a smart object. And as mentioned before, the topmost layer is for the name. So if I now go in with a double click and open this smart object, you see that the retouching.psb is exactly the layer like here, or the layers over here. And inside this retouching smart object, I can now delete this topmost layer. Okay, now I will close and save the smart object so that it's saved here inside this retouching smart object. Just save this layer or this file, not just this layer. So it's inside Lightroom, and now I can go in and work on the masking. And for this, I will just take the selection tool, in this case a smart selection tool. You can also go to the select menu and just select the subject button, and Photoshop is searching for the subject like so. And if you want to quickly look over the mask, you can press on the Q key, and now you see with an overlay where the mask have been created, and I say that's quite okay. Here we have some small problems, and I assume over here as well and over here as well. Okay, but we want to work on this, so just go out of the quick mask mode. It's this button over here if you want to change this with a mouse click. Okay, and now you can go inside the select menu and just choose select and mask and work on the hair. And in select and mask, you see you have the overlay that's here in the views. In the view tab, you can change to black and white. It's the K shortcut, key. And you can, or I will always switch between V for the overlay and the black and white, the mask view. And on this view, or on the overlay view, you can use the refine edge tool and just go in to the hair details, paint over, and call Photoshop to just reassign or recalculate these regions where you're painting over. And I would definitely recommend to go over the hair like so, and I think that's okay. Here on the lower part of this image, you see that there's a little bit of gray coming in from behind the cloth, but I don't think that it is working if you're painting over. So let's see. No, that's too much. So Command C to undo this last operation over here. This wasn't that great of an idea. Okay, just look over the mask, and I think that's okay, because this tool is really crucial for the hair, but for the masking like so, just leave it and do it on the mask afterwards. So if I scroll down, I put the output settings to selection because I just want to refine my selection. That's done right now, and now I can create a mask, and I have masked out the person. For the small regions like here and here, you can work right now on this or afterwards when you bring it over or brought it over to the background image. But in this case here, I want to start working on this region like so. And for this, I will take the brush tool, no, not the brush tool, the pen tool in the mode of path, and just go in and mask away this region like so. Okay. And now you can press on the keyboard Command and the Enter key, and you create a selection from this path tool. And because I have white as foreground and black as background color, I can now go in and do a Command backspace, and now I fill this selection with the background color. And the same I will do over for this region over here, like so. Command Enter, Command backspace, just to fill it with black. Go in like so, Option click to break this level or this point over here. Just go in like so, bring here a new point, notch it over with the keyboard, Command Enter, Command backspace, and the same I will do for this region over here. So just go in, Option click, here out, Command Enter, Option backspace, no, Command backspace, and now this is done. The crucial part over here is that if you are using the path tool, you have to understand that the edge is a digital edge, so you have no selection and 100% selection, and that's most of the time not the way it is in the image. So you just have to smudge the edge with the finger tool, or just unsharpen it with the unsharpen tool, and this is what I will do right now. So I will switch over to the blur tool, not unsharpen, and just go over these regions to unsharpen a little bit of the regions I have created over here. And if I go inside the mask with an option click and go over this region, you see that you get a blur, and that's a much better and much more natural look as you have had before. Okay, looking great like it is right now. So I will save it, Command S, and now I will take the image, or I will take the background image like so, as mentioned before. That's Unsplash image from Semi Saudi, and I will take it with the move tool, bring it up, wait a little bit, bring it down and drop it inside this image. It's a coincidence that it's really the same size. If it wouldn't be the same size, you can go in with the free transform tool, Command T, and change the size. And that's the background. And as mentioned, it's a background. I will bring it on the background, so like so. And now I can take the retouching layer of her, and with Command T, free transform, I will transform it that she will stand roughly here. And for this I will take the point over here, take the option key, and with the option key in the free transform mode, I can transform the size of her so that she's roughly this big, maybe a little bit bigger. Bring her down a little bit more, and with the option key do the resizing like so. Okay, this could be okay, maybe a little bit smaller like so, and say okay. Now I can close the Unsplash image and have just this image. And because I've bring this over from Lightroom and I've saved it right now, when I go back to Lightroom, you see that I have the image next to the raw image. You see it over here. In the same folder is now my PSD image with all the settings I have lastly saved. So I switch now over to Photoshop again, and now I can look on the mask and see if I have some problems like here. And now I want to work on these problems, and for this I will take the brush tool with the black color and just brush this away like so. Okay, that's okay. Then I just look for some white areas like so. For this I will bring in the brush size, and this region is really tight, so don't work with the brush tool, just take the notch tool and the finger and bring the mask in a little bit. That's okay. Here I have some problems with the mask in general, so I will fix this globally. And for this I will take the lasso tool with a 30 pixel feather, but maybe 30 pixels is a little bit much on this small image. So I will go in and take a, let's go for a 5 pixel feather, like so, and just select these regions over here. But with the option key, I do a minus and just deselect these regions over here. And I just want to go in for this edge over here, maybe even not there down, it's okay, like so. And that's just the edge. Here I will bring this in as well. And because I want to change the edge to bring it in a little bit more to the left, I can select the mask like so. Then I will go to the filter menu, and here inside the filter menu I have maximum and minimum, and I'm not sure what's the right one, so I just take the maximum. And now you see this was not the right one. With maximum the white regions getting bigger, so I have to go in and just say other minimum, and I don't want to have a radius change of 41 pixels. I just want to go really tight in like so, 0.8, 0.7, just that the white halos are going away. And with the minimum you will extend the black regions, and it's crucial that you preserve the roundness, so don't go for squareness, go for roundness, and then just for some pixels so that the white halo is going away. and in this case I think 0.5 pixels is really okay. Just go on with this, and on the second round I will go in and use the Gaussian blur and just blur it just a tiny bit so that I have a little bit of a softer edge, not this sharp as it was before. And all of this is on this mask layer and just in this region, and because I had a small feather on the lasso tool on the selection, the regions like here and the region over here is blurred a little bit out, so the transition is better. Okay, deselect, now go in with the smudge tool on the mask for sure, and just bring in this edge a little bit and just smudge it in just so much. Okay, that's okay. Here I want to blur the edge a little bit, and I do it with the smudge tool and just go with the edge just to blur it a little bit, and let's see that I go inside like so. That's okay. Here as well, bring it in a little bit, and the rest is looking great in regards of the mask. Okay, now the next part are the hairs, or the hair here on the head. And for this I want to darken the hair a little bit, and so I will create a new mask, call this mask hairs or darken hair, like so. And I will demonstrate what I will do right now. I have some of a small halo around, and to get rid of this I will take the brush tool. I will take a really soft brush tool, and just to see or to demonstrate what I will do, I will just go in with 100%, sample a hair color over there and paint over. And with this I can paint over the edges, and I just want to have this hair color onto the retouched layer, or where there are pixels on the retouched layer. And so I can go in and create a clipping mask by option clicking between these two layers. And now the painting I've done on the darken hair layer is just here inside the hair visible. But now I see this isn't looking great. I will switch over to this view that you see it a little bit better. And because that's not that great, I have to erase the content of this layer by pressing Command A. So everything is selected, and then hit the delete key, and now the content of this layer is deleted. And the real part, how you're doing this, is to change this darken hair layer to multiply. Go with the brush up to, let's say, 20 or even just 10%. Sample the layer or the hair color and paint it in like so. So just go in with the hair color and paint over the halo regions where you have the lighter colors from the background from the original image, and just paint this away ever so slightly like so, and press on the eye on this darken hair layer. That's the before and that's the after, and for this I would say that's okay. So I will darken the hair even inside a little bit more like so, and on the right side, on our right side as well. So just go in, sample the colors and paint over, and now I see that halo has been done. Okay, so a really crucial part for compositing is the shadow. And the best thing is that you can go in and use the shadows you had from the original image. And for this I will take the retouch or retouching layer, it's a Smartobject, and just jump it on a new layer by pressing Command J, and that's my shadow layer. And on the shadow layer I can just go in and delete the mask for the beginning. And now I want to work on the shadows over here. And to see that a little bit better, I will hide the retouching layer on top and just work on the shadow layer. And now I can change the blend mode from normal to multiply, like so. And this layer will now multiply with the background layer. So there are two things to have in mind. First of all, you want to have, or you don't want to have, these edges. And these edges are because the background isn't a pure white, the background is just a light gray. And you want to change the light gray over here to a pure white. And this you can do with a levels adjustment, for example. And it's crucial that the levels adjustment just is just clipped to the shadows layer by option clicking on it. And so the levels or the changes in the levels will just affect the shadows. From the levels you can delete the layer mask, like so. And that's the levels for the shadows. And now I can bring in my white point to the left, ever so slightly, that you come over this mountain peak in the histogram. And now everything that was gray before is now white. And if you want to have the shadow darker, you can change the gamma point by bringing it to the right. And now you get a darker shadow. And the cool stuff is, because the shadow layer is on multiply, if you now engage the background, you see that you just brought in the shadows over here. And now you can do the following. You will create a new layer mask, or not a layer mask as mentioned before. And this layer mask should be black, so inverted. Then you can re-establish the retouching layer, like so. So bring in the eyes on the layer on the top, and on the shadow layer, on the layer mask, you can now bring in the shadow with a white brush and just paint over with 100% opacity, that you see something. Paint over and paint in the original shadow. It's like this one. I will switch the views so that you see it. And this is just on this image a small amount of shadow, but it will definitely work that she's now standing on the ground. Just for reference, or just for explaining, I will create a solid color layer, like so. And here you see that's without the shadow, and that's with the shadow. And the difference is, here she's flying, just floating around on a brown orangey background. And if you now engage the shadow layer, then you see it's okay. And with black you can fade this away, like so. And if I now delete the color fill layer, I have the original shadow on the bottom, and it's looking great. What you can also do, just for additional shadow, you can go in and bring in her pixels and flip them over so you have a shadow from behind. And for this I will create a new layer underneath the shadow, and I will call this shadow silhouette, like so. And I can press in, or come in and press with the command key onto the mask, like so. You see you get the small masking icon. Press on it with the command key. Now you have selected all the pixels on this mask, and these pixels you have just selected, you can fill the shadow silhouette layer with black. So I will do a option backspace, so the foreground color is filled inside the selection on my shadow layer. Then I can deselect the mask, command D, and via command T, free transform, and press down command key, you can flip her over, like so, and nudge the shadows around. I will always press on the command key just to bring the shadow in, like so. And now I would move the shadow up a little bit to the side, like here, just to work on it, because shadows are always sharp really next to her and get blurred where they are coming away. And for this you can go into the filter menu, and there you have the blur gallery, and inside the blur gallery you have the field blur. And with the field blur you can set the blur amount, like so, and bring it over, make it bigger, so the blur is really big. and then you can add an additional point over here and bring the blur down. So you have a sharp blur in the beginning, and the blurriness of the image extends or gets even bigger when you're going away from this region. And you can even set an additional point somewhere else, like so, and bring here the blurriness up a little bit, but I will stay just with 1 or 2 blurs, a big one down there, and more or less nothing over here. Maybe I will bring it up a little bit and set another blur point on the left foot, on our side, the left side. And now I can bring in the blur, field blur, like so. And I will go in and bring here an additional point for blurring. Yeah, and I will say that's okay right now. So I press on OK. This will get rendered on this shadow silhouette layer, and now I can bring it over where I want to have it, like so. The blur gets bigger the more it's away from her, and now I can bring in the opacity or lower the opacity in this layer, like so. And I think I have to add an additional Gaussian blur, so I will add a Gaussian blur over this layer, like so. Yeah, that's okay. So that I have not these sharp edges over here. Cool. So don't forget to save it. And now we can work on some additional features. And the next thing I want to do is to bring in the light on her. And for this, I will go above the darken hair layer and create a new layer. And on this layer, I will go also in and clip the layer 1 to her. That's the option click in between these 2 layers. And I will call this colors. And set the mode from normal to hard light or vivid light. I will see what's better. Maybe I will go in and go to vivid light. Yeah, like so. And now I can go in and take my brush tool, and I will take a really big brush, or yeah, a rather big brush, and sample colors from behind her. So these colors of the light, maybe an yellowish light color. This you can do with the brush with the press down option key. And it's crucial at the eyedropper tool that you set the sample size to an 11 by 11 average at least. So you don't get the pixels, you get an average of 11 by 11 pixels. So that's really, really crucial. So just take the bright yellow from here. And now you can paint over her shoulder. I will go in a little bit harsh right now. And the crucial part is that you don't paint this 100%. That's the first. And the second crucial part is here on the vivid light colors layer, you bring down the fill, not the opacity, a little bit, like so. And maybe I will switch to another blend mode. Yeah, I think linear light is even better. Yeah, like so. I think that's okay. So that's the 100% effect if you are here with a fill of 78. And now I delete everything on this layer, Command A, delete, Command D, and bring down my opacity to roughly 20% or so. Do the brush size, reduce the brush size a little bit, and just paint over colors on the edge, but I will stay with the bright colors, maybe here on the hair as well, and just paint here and color edge, like so, and here as well. Reduce the size, go in a second time, and here as well, like so. And with this I get an color edge over here. And the crucial part here is that you will also select edges like here. And for this I will take the pen tool and go in from here to here. No, a little bit to the left. So, okay. And I will now just stay on this region right now. Command Enter, take the brush tool, and now I can just paint here inside this region. Okay, Command D to deselect. The same here on this foot from her. Like so. Command Enter, take the brush B and bring in some colors or some light over here. Fade it out and paint a little bit over here. And if I didn't got the edge right, like on this region, I can go in with the smudge tool and bring it just a little bit to the left and smooth it out. Yeah, like so. That's okay. Yep. Then from the right side, I will take the brush, go to a blue, because the blue light is coming here from the right side, and just add a little bit of blue over here and over here. If it was too much, go with the eraser and erase away what you've done too much on this side. Yeah, and maybe a little bit of blue or this color here. And just go for some lighter colors that you are really seeing what you're adding. Maybe here some reddish color also on her knee. Yeah, and maybe some red as from the reflections over there as well. And what you have now done is the following. This was the before. I will switch the view so you see it without any color, and that's afterwards, before and after. And if it's too much, you can always bring down the fill like so, or you can even work with the opacity, but I would leave the opacity most of the time by 100 at 100% and just go down with the fill over here. Okay, that's good for now. I will save it because it would be a mess if Photoshop crashes right now on me, but it's okay. And now I want to work on the graininess of the background and on her graininess, because there is no grain on her. And for this I will create a new layer and call this grain. Fill it with gray. For this I hold down the Shift and the backspace key. Then the fill dialog gets opened and I will fill it with 50% gray. Just say OK. And now I can create a smart object from this grain layer. Right click, convert to smart object. Now I switch the blend mode for this layer and the smart object from normal to soft light. So I will just see nothing because gray is the neutral color for soft light. And now the next point is to go into the filter layer, and here inside the filter layer you have the option to go to noise, and here you can say add noise. And for this add noise, just create it on monochromatic, and the distribution is on Gaussian. And then you go down, really far down, and bring in the grain so that the grain will add on her. And if the grain adds on the background as well, then you have too much grain. So in my case, this would be on 20. I think roughly around 10-ish, maybe a little bit less, should be a good amount of grain. So I have now grain added to her and to the background as well. But I think that's okay, because now she has the same grain amount as there is in the background, and that's quite okay for now. Okay, now I want to add some color for the whole image, and this I will do with a new adjustment layer and with a gradient map adjustment layer. And the gradient map adjustment layer works like this. So the left colors over here are on the darkest areas of the image, and the right colors over here are added to the lightest, to the white areas of the image. And you don't want to use the gradient map in the normal blend mode. You want to use it in soft light, and then you can click onto the gradient, go to the darker regions, press on the color, and here I want to go in and add some darker blues, like so, and not so much color, so I go a little bit to the left, maybe like so. Then I will add an additional point in the middle, go to the color tab and go to some orange color, lighter, so I go up, left is less saturation, right is more saturation, so maybe somewhere over here. Go on, okay, see the before and the after, the before and the after, and now you have this color scheme of the gradient map on the foreground and on the background as well. You don't need the layer mask, so I delete the mask, and now the colors are brought together better. But I want to have a little bit more warmth in this, so I will go a little bit more to the reddish color, go here to the right, more saturation on this, yeah, maybe something like this. Okay, this is looking great. Okay, and now I can add some rain, if I want to add some rain. And for this I create a new layer and call this layer rain. And because the rain layer should also have the grain and the gradient map on top of it, I will bring it down to here. That's my rain layer. And on this rain layer I can go in and paint in some rain. And for this I have a dust layer, or a dust, not layer, a dust brush. And the dust brush is doing the following. And I will show it on a new document and on a new layer. And when I paint on it, you see that I get a lot of dust, like so. And the dust is all everywhere and is scattered and has different opacity levels. And I want to show you how you can create such a dust brush. And for this you need a new document with 2000 by 2000 pixels. Okay, and then you take just a normal brush with black on this layer and bring it in really small, so 1-2 pixels, and paint in one black dust point on the left of the document, and then go over to the right and paint it in as well, like so. That's okay. And now I can go in and say edit and define brush preset. And then you can create a brush preset of this. And because I've done it before, I can now switch over to this layer and I take my dust. So the sample or the brush tip has been created. And in the brush settings, you go into the shape dynamics and bring up the jitter as crazy. Then the size jitter for sure, so that you don't have all the brush tips next to each other. You want to have them jittered around in the size. And then you can go in with the angle, so you don't have it all aligned greatly next to each other. You want to have it in a randomized angle. At the scattering you go up to 1000, so this is without scattering, so everything is really next to each other. But if you bring up the scattering, you have a really scattered brush that will have these dots all over the place. And in the transfer tab you choose the flow jitter to 100%. And with this you can close this document and go into this layer, and on the rain layer I paint right now with black. I can also switch to white, so I will take white and just paint over like so. I can do some more rain or more drops over here, and when I now go in, you see you have a lot of dots everywhere inside this image, and these are frozen dots. but you can bring in some life to these dots by going to the filter menu, go to the blur gallery, and here you have the path blur, and in the path blur you have this path, and you can bring down the speed so that you see the dots or the raindrops like so. And this is maybe a little bit too big, bring it down a little bit more, or yeah, let it rain quite a bit. And the cool stuff is you can also bring in some curved shape so that the rain will come in from here and get a curve inside this image. Here I will bring in a second path and bring the curve over to this side, so you have more dynamic inside your raindrops. And here I will also add a curve like so. So say OK, so that the blur gets rendered onto your rain. And what you can do now is to bring these raindrops in the background, back the retouching layer, then add another rain layer. This is rain foreground, and do exactly the same, but for the foreground. And here the raindrops can be a little bit bigger, maybe even bigger, like so. Because it's in the foreground, it could be bigger. So that's totally fine for now. And now I can go in and also go to the filter, to the blur gallery. This is exactly the same because I entered the same blur gallery settings before by adding the option key. And now I want to change this rain patterns or this wind patterns for the foreground. So just like so. And I can add more speed if I want to, or less speed. Yeah, I will go into, let's say, 10 for the speed. Yeah, I don't like this big ones, so I can go in and add a little bit more. Let's go to 18% on the speed. Yeah, maybe even more. Yeah, 27. Okay, and with this I have the rain bigger in the foreground and smaller in the background. If I want to change the color from white, for example, to go to black, I can just invert the raindrops, but white is quite okay. And I will bring down the opacity. That's okay. And that's the rain in the background. Here I can also bring down the opacity, so just have some rain in the foreground and in the background. So this should work. Maybe underneath the grain layer, so that the rain has also a little bit of a grain added. Okay, now I want to save it and add a little bit of an vignetting. So I go in and add a curves layer, call this curves vignetting, bring this down like so. Because of the white layer mask, everything is darkened right now. Now I can go in with a really big soft brush with black and just paint in where I don't want to have this darkening. Okay, that's good for the start, but it's a little bit hard in the transition. And for this I will select the layer mask, go inside the Gaussian blur and blur the mask really with a high radius, so like this. And then I can go in and just don't do it that much, yeah, like so. And then I would say that's okay for now. So Command 0, now press on the F key for full screen, and that's the image right now I've just created. You can even work more on this image, but I think it's okay for now. I will save it as mentioned before. Then you can close it. Because I have saved this image and closed it, it will come over to Lightroom. And here inside Lightroom I have the before image, or the image of her, and the after image. I can also stand or bring both of them next to each other, and now I have the image side by side. I can go in here inside Lightroom and check if I want to change something, to edit something, or work on this image. And the cool stuff is, if I now want to go in again and change something, let's say on the retouching, I can go in, edit in Photoshop, edit the original, press on edit, and Lightroom sends this over to Photoshop. And here inside Photoshop I have all of my layers. And if I now want to change something on the retouching, I can go into the retouching smart object with a double click, have now my smart object opened. And if I want to have some brighter eyes, for example, I can bring in the brightening or bring up the brightening. And if I want to change something, let's say on the retouching layer, I can go in and do the retouching. I can also change the color of the shoe, for example. Let's do this. For this I would go in with an hue saturation layer, go on this tool and press here so that I just have the reds, and change the reds to some more orangey, or let's go for some blue. So like this. And here see, you change the whole image because the hair and the skin tones are also blue. But because are also blue right now, because I worked on the reds, everything is changing. But I have a layer mask, so I can invert the layer mask, go for a brush, take a white color, and just paint here inside the region where the shoes are, like so. And now I can go here, change again back to the reds, and just fit or match the color of the shoes, like so. This is hue saturation shoes. And I didn't save the file right now. So here in the compositing, the shoes are still orange. But when I go inside the smart object and save the smart object and now switch over, I have the blue shoes here in my compositing as well. But I think the orange will fit better to her hair. So I go over like here, go in to the reds, bring back the hue slider, and just go a little bit to the orangey side, bring in more saturation. Yeah, this should work. Save this, close the smart object, and now I have more orangey shoes that will fit better to her hair. And now I save this, close it if it's saved, and here in Lightroom I have now my updated compositing file. So you see, if you're working with smart objects coming out from Lightroom, work with layer mask, work with layers, and be in a very, very open workflow, then you have the possibility to change everything you want to change all of the time. So if I say the noise level is too big, I can always go in and change the noise level, because my noise layer is in Smart Object as well, and I can change the noise filter because it's a smart filter. And so if you just think in an open-ended way, you can change everything every time you want to, and you're really, really flexible. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on a composition theme. If you want to see more of this, or if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a like. And yeah, so I hope you have learned something new, and I hope we will see us soon.